Hey guys, and welcome to my new series where we're gonna explore every single aspect of building an online business on this YouTube channel. I got this idea a few days ago because I remembered just as a college student going through some of Khan Academy's videos, which is just an incredible website, a free online education website where they teach you every subject under the sun, like math and chemistry and things like that, and physics. And that's a website that I used to get through a lot of university because I felt like the exercises that they shared were just so much better than they shared in the live classes, and they really helped me build a deep understanding of a subject. And this is where I feel like the online business world is kind of lacking. I think there's a lot of ideas out there, but few people really push you to pursue mastery and to really understand concepts deeply. It's a lot of really untested ideas, a lot of theories, a lot of frameworks, a lot of formulas. But I feel like if you want to build an online business and you want to make a living off of it and you want to do it in an authentic way, you have to really understand certain concepts deeply, like anything from finding a business idea to writing compelling copy that doesn't sound salesy to building the best possible online products you can create, and so on and so on. So in this series, I really just want to have fun with it and break down some of the concepts based on my actual experiences, based on everything I've seen working with hundreds of students and helping them build their own online businesses that they live off now, that they love, that they have thousands of clients for. And I just wanted to put this information out there on the internet so that anyone who wants to start an online business and maybe do some kind of blogging or start a YouTube channel, and then they want to sell either online courses or coaching programs or something like that, that there is a free resource that can help you get started where we cover every topic under the sun related to online business. It is a new series, so any feedback that you guys have for me, either email it to me if you're subscribed to my email list or leave it down as a comment below, because I really want to make it the best possible series for you guys. But right now, I just want to dive in. So today, what we're going to go over is really how to come up with your own profitable online business idea. Because I feel like right now, there's a lot of people who are basically saying the same thing over and over again, and I've seen that doesn't really. It's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily how it works. Because a lot of people, when they talk about how to come up with a business idea, they give you this worksheet with these exercises. But then in reality, every entrepreneur that I've talked to so far about how they came up with their own business ideas that then took off, it wasn't really from sitting down and filling out a worksheet from an online course. It was a much more organic process, and I wanted to break down that process for you today. And I also wanted to just walk you through some examples so I can show you like what's really working with some ideas, what's not working with others, and that's going to help you develop a deeper understanding of how to find an idea, because it's like going through math problems, and we're going to be going through basically business idea problems, if that makes a lot of sense. And then in the future, perhaps I'll record another video where we go over more specific problems or things like that. If you guys send me your business ideas, I can critique those. So we can just have a great project together, and I can just share my knowledge with you guys, and you guys can learn from these videos. So what we're going to focus on in this specific video is, first of all, finding a gap in the market. So we'll talk about what a gap in the market is, the different types of gaps in the market, and why it's just so important for it to exist if you want to build a profitable online business. Second of all, we'll talk about how to come up with ideas. So we'll go over this different specific strategies that you can use to actually come up with your own business ideas and how the organic process actually looks like. And then we'll also talk about choosing your own idea. So we'll talk about things like how to choose the right idea if you have too many ideas, and we'll also talk about things like what to do if you have no business ideas right now. How can you still build an online business? Okay, so let's dive in. Let's start at the beginning, and we're gonna start with a gap in the market. So this is the gap in the market. Okay, so basically a gap in the market is the most important thing when it comes to finding your online business idea, because if there's no gap between something that people really, really, really want, but they're not getting, there is very little opportunity for you to come in and, build an actual online business that catches a lot of traction. That means that a lot of people come and reach out to you and they want to work with you and hire you or subscribe to your email list or come and visit your website. Those things are not going to happen unless there's some kind of an existing desire, some kind of an existing pain, some kind of an existing frustration out there that people want a solution for. I'll give you a practical example. For a couple of months last year, I was really involved in indoor climbing and I wanted to get really good at it. And then I look at my options like, okay, so I hired an in-person trainer, but I wanted to learn more and more and more. And I wanted to buy an online course on climbing. And I Googled around it and I basically couldn't find it. There's there's a handful of people doing some kind of coaching for rock climbing. There's a ton of YouTube videos, but there's no detailed online course that would be available on the internet that would teach you all the techniques. So that's where there is a gap between the demand, because I'm sure there are other people like me who want to get online courses on climbing, because there's so many people wanting to learn climbing nowadays. And then between the content that is out there. So when there's this gap, you can come in with your idea and fill this gap. And that means you can create free content, so either YouTube videos or blog posts or any other sort of content. And then you can also create paid content, such as creating an online course or online program, a coaching program, things like that. When there's some kind of a gap and you feel like, oh my God, there really should be something out there, but it isn't, that's when you can go and you can fill that gap. And that's really the most important thing when it comes to finding an online business idea, because I see so many online business ideas that don't work out. And typically when you look at them, in most of the cases, there's just no gap in the market. Like everybody that comes to me nowadays and they're like, oh, I want to work on something in self-improvement or productivity or something like that. I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but how are you unique? How are you different? What audience are you serving that's not being served yet? Because if you just come and start writing articles about habits and productivity and mindset, and you don't target it to a specific audience or solve a specific problem that nobody else is solving, unfortunately, in most cases, it's just not going to work out very well for you, because there are no people that are looking for this solution desperately, and there are already so many options that they can go through. There's tens of books on habits creation and things like that. So in that case, you have to really take a look at your idea and, tweak it slightly so that you can find some kind of a gap. And that might mean if I start writing about productivity for Slovenian audience, there's way less competition and there's probably a lot of people who want to be productive. So that would be a much better idea to choose than by going and pursuing the big market. And then again, you have to test things and you have to find which ideas actually there are gaps, and you have to do a little bit of research on that and things like that. And we'll go over that in another video when we talk about business idea validation. But first, let's just establish the concept of this gap in the market. That's going to be the foundation of today's video. And now let's dive a little bit deeper on that topic. So there's actually a couple of different types of gaps in the market, and I defined 3 different types. So one of them would be the problem gap. Okay. So the problem gap. That means that with your business idea, you can solve a problem that nobody else is solving yet. A great example of that is actually business design. So let me actually bring this up right now. We'll look at this a little bit later. But if we look at business design, this is a friend of mine has a website that helps, basically designers learn about business. When it comes to business design, I don't have a plugin that would show me the search volume here, but on my computer, I have a plugin called Keywords Everywhere, and basically about 5,000 people every month are searching for business design. And yet, when you start looking at some of the content here, there's not a lot of content. There's this one book, and then there's just not a lot of it. Some people are kind of explaining what it is. If you look at some of these articles, and you can kind of look at something like this, but the reality is there isn't a ton of great content out there. So it's okay, this is the whole article. This doesn't really teach me how to, become a business designer. But then my friend, whose article is actually here, who wrote this guide on what is business design and how do I become a business designer, he wrote this really long and really detailed guide, and this guide got him a few thousand email subscribers over the past few months since it's been published. Like, you can see a world of difference by how much more detailed this is. And he also has an online course on, or an online program, I should say, a live online program on business design that I believe is between $1,000 and $2,000 that is constantly sold out because he's creating this kind of content. Like, he has found his gap in the market where essentially, like, a lot of people have this problem. A lot of people were talking about this problem in his industry, but nobody was really telling like people how to solve it. Like, I remember I was talking to him earlier when he was just coming up with his idea, and he said like, yeah, a lot of experts are saying this is really important, but there's really nobody teaching how to do this, and I know how to do this, so let me start teaching it. And then, over the next few years, like, his business really took off because he worked really hard on it, and there was a clear gap in the market. The next example of a gap is an audience gap. So this is a little stick figure here. So the audience gap is the second type of a gap that you will find. An example of that is actually from my old days. Like, the very first profitable online business that I started I was actually a productivity coach for online poker players who typically, played online poker on their big screens from home, and they wanted to, become more productive so they could be more focused when they played, so they could play more, and then they would earn more money. And I eventually left that business idea, but in the beginning, it really worked because what I did is I went on this online forum and I started writing this guide to productivity for poker players. And I just saw people saying wow, this is amazing, this is great. And I wrote it over the course of 6 months, and I kept updating a single post on the forum. But I even when I just wrote the first 1 or 2 chapters, when I talked about basic things like, building habits or creating a vision for yourself or setting goals and things like that, people just loved it because it was an audience that wasn't being served directly. Even at that time, there were plenty of productivity books out there, but nobody was talking specifically to online poker players, which is why I was able to come in and fill that gap in the market. And I didn't know if anyone was actually looking for that. I just tested it. I just sat down and I started writing, and then I saw, wow, people really care about this. There's a lot of response. And eventually, that single guide that I wrote got over 200,000 views. It was translated into 7 languages by people who enjoyed it so much, so it was reposted on other forums. I later on went to create videos, actually quite similar to this ones, some educational videos for poker players on productivity that got millions of views on that website. And that was just because there was a gap in the market. If there were 5 people already teaching productivity for poker players, it's very unlikely that my idea would succeed, but there was a gap in the audience. And that's another thing. Nowadays, I feel a lot of gaps for business ideas are actually either in your country or either locally. For example, you could teach, starting an online business to French people. Probably shouldn't do that if you're finding a business idea right now. But you could teach a skill let's say, productivity to French people or something like that, or French speaking people. And there's probably a much bigger gap in the market than it is in the worldwide market. Or you could also just pick a very specific audience, for example, meditation for lawyers rather than just meditation for everybody, or meditation for programmers. That's actually a great idea that I've seen one of my students execute on and find a lot of traction recently. So the second thing is you can find an audience that has a certain problem that you know how to solve, but nobody is really speaking to that exact audience. Nobody is solving the problem for that specific audience. So that would be the second one. And then the third one, I call it the angle gap. So this one is a little bit more sophisticated, and I would not recommend 99% of the people to start with this gap because it is a little bit trickier to execute on, because typically what it includes is entering a saturated market where there's already a lot of people have a certain problem, but there's also a lot of competition. For example, copywriting or productivity or weight loss or something like that. And then what you want to do with finding an angle gap is finding a specific angle to the way that you present your content or to your solution, or the way that you just deliver help. So for example, you could do coaching in a market where nobody does coaching and there are just online courses, or you could do, some kind of an online course in a market where everybody does coaching, just like, for example, a climbing market would be, an example of that. So what you want to do is you want to come up with this specific way to solve your audience that's better or different than the way that everybody else has it. So this angle, I would say it's fairly uncommon, and we'll look at different examples of business ideas and you'll see that only like one of them has an angle gap and most of them really have an audience or a problem gap. So if I would just make up some numbers, it would be like 10% and then 45% and then 45% of business ideas that I've seen. Like this is kind of like the spread. It's not exactly accurate. You'll see the next page, like we'll look at like 10, 12 different examples. You can do the math yourself. But the angle part is very uncommon. So I see a lot of people like trying to create this angle gap. Like they enter a market, it's already busy. They say like, oh, I'm different. And sometimes it can work, but for it to work, like you really have to test a lot of different ideas and methods and messages. And then eventually you have to find something that really catches fire and blows up. And that's when like, oh, this is an angle that I can pursue. This is what actually people want to learn a lot more about. And I can pursue this in the future. Like a great example of that is actually one of my friends, Nagina from Masala Buddy. So Nagina, she teaches a program to spice yourself skinny. So basically helping women, ambitious women, lose weight through using spices in their cuisine, which I think is a brilliant idea. And she had that idea from the start, but she was focusing on different angles and it never really took off until she wrote a guest post for, I think, Mind Body Green. And that got her like 1,500 email subscribers overnight. And she made that post about spices, and that was like, oh, that's interesting. And then she wrote more posts about spices and they took off, and then she realized that that was actually her unique angle. But it took her months and months until she figured that out. That's why I'm saying that the angle part is a little bit trickier to nail, but in some cases it is possible, and it does explain why some businesses work even in very crowded and saturated markets. It's just, I feel like it's easier to find a problem that nobody's solving or an audience that nobody's serving than a unique angle in a crowded market. But that's why a lot of businesses fail, because they think they have a unique angle, and maybe they have a unique angle, but if it doesn't fill some kind of a gap, something that people really, really want, then unfortunately many ideas don't work out, which means you would spend a lot of time writing blog posts and trying to build your email list, and you want to sell something, and like you just struggle every part of the way. It just feels like, this kind of an uphill battle where you just keep going uphill and you're up here, and then it feels like the finish line is here, which is what should not happen with a business idea that is good. Because when you have a business idea that is good, you'll see traction, and you'll see like it's more of a downward thing where you start working on it and you're really like just like a ball rolling down the hill, and everything that you do just helps you create more and more and more momentum. So if you have an idea that feels like an uphill battle, then likely you just haven't found the gap in the market yet. That's the most likely explanation based on everything that I've seen on this topic and all the experience I've had with this in the past. Okay, let's keep moving. So now let's look at some examples, because I think it's one thing to just learn a concept and another is to kind of like practice it and internalize it. And I want to create a dedicated video where I critique your business ideas in the future. So if you do have ideas, please do email them to me if you want feedback on them. But here I want to look at some examples of business ideas that did work out from, some friends, some of my past clients, and so on, to show you the kind of gaps that they have in the market and to show you how simple these ideas can actually be. So let's look at these examples. The first example is how to become a professional animator. So when you think about, okay, how to become a professional animator, is that a gap in the angle? Is that a gap in the audience? Or is that a gap in the problem? Well, the answer for this one is that it's a gap in the problem, because you're teaching a problem, like, become a professional animator. Like, this is a skill that you're teaching. This is something that, not many people were teaching before. And one of my friends decided to teach it as an alternative to animation schools. Now, if you wanted to make it an audience gap, it would be teaching animation for, let's say, 4 animators at Disney or 4 professional animators, because that's a different audience, because they already are familiar with the basics and they want some of the advanced stuff. Or it would be teaching animation for animated movies, or like a specific audience that you would want to address, or just like, teaching animation to a Spanish audience or something like that. Next, let's look at speech pathology. So another one of my past clients, her name is Karen. She teaches speech pathology. So she helps teachers who, do have to work with certain types of kids and help them in different ways so they can, progress better in schools. She teaches them these like speech pathology skill sets that help them serve their students a little bit better. And that's, again, a gap in the problem. Like, she's teaching a specific topic that nobody else was teaching well before. Then let's look at writing. Writing without a degree. That's actually something that one of my friends, Gabriela, teaches. And, teaching writing, it's a very saturated market, but she's specifically focused on teaching writers who want to learn how to write better without getting a writing degree. So that, as you can see, is focusing on a specific audience rather than the specific problem. Next, let's look at interviews at tech companies. So this is from one of my clients, Sam. He teaches programmers who want to get jobs at companies like Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, at the top tech companies. He teaches them how to really excel at different coding interviews that they have to pass in order to get their jobs. So rather than just teaching interviewing, which would be a problem gap if nobody was teaching how to interview for a job well, he focuses on a specific audience, so that makes it an audience gap. Rather than teaching interviewing skills to everybody, he's just specifically focusing on coding interviews at tech companies. And you could also say that this is a problem because the coding interviews are a specific problem that he's actually solving for people. Okay. Next, let's look at Upwork freelancing. So this is something that one of my friends, Danny Margulis from Freelance to Win, teaches. And he doesn't teach freelancing to everybody because, again, that's a saturated market. But he did say, I just want to work with people who want to freelance on Upwork. So that's it could be a problem gap because you're how do I get my first client on Upwork? Or it could also be an audience gap because technically you are, serving people who want to basically get their first gigs through Upwork rather than just serving all the different freelancers. And the logistics of this, they aren't as important. It doesn't matter if something is like an audience gap or a problem gap, or if you don't know which one it is. It's just important that it's at least one of them. Okay, let's look at some more ideas. So Etsy business is another idea. So Jenny from Fuzzy and Birch, again, one of my past clients, she helps people build profitable Etsy businesses. And that also, you could say that it's a problem gap, maybe also an audience gap. But basically, she's teaching people how to set up and grow their businesses on Etsy so they can, sell things online, rather than just saying I'll help people start an e-commerce business, which would be, just very general, or just how do I help? I want to help, people sell things online. She's making it way more specific. Okay, next, let's look at Illustrator. So Illustrator is a problem. If there were no courses on Illustrator on the market, that would be a good industry to pursue. But there are courses out there already. So let's look at one of my past clients, Heidi. She actually teaches Illustrator to fashion designers, and she has a nicely growing business. And again, she's focusing on a very specific audience. She's applying the Illustrator skills to a specific audience, and she's speaking exactly to them, directly to them. And, she goes into the details on how you can use Illustrator as a fashion designer in all different situations, different skill sets, and so on and so on. So again, you have an audience gap there. Let's look at a few more of this. I actually have a long list of this, and feel free to skim through the video if you don't want to listen to all of this. But I did want to give you a lot of examples so you can really start to internalize these frameworks, because I feel like a lot of people, in the online space, they often give you too little examples, and then you don't really get the idea, as strong as you could otherwise, and you don't really get ideas for your own business ideas as well. So that's why I wanted to cover, a lot of these ideas so that you can really see how I think about these ideas, and you can, take some of those thinking patterns and then start thinking in the same way as well, because it's going to be easier for you to spot great ideas when you come up with one. Okay, next. You can learn how to speak at TEDx events. That's what another one of my friends is teaching. So that's another specific problem. Like, rather than just saying like, hey, I'll teach you how to become a public speaker, his positioning is like, hey, you want to speak at a TEDx event, you want to make sure you get accepted, and so on and so on. I'll walk you through the whole process, and I'll help you create an awesome TEDx speech that can actually reach a lot of people. So that's his positioning. He's specifically focusing on that specific problem. And when he started his business, there was nobody else really doing that, which is why he was able to do it. Next, EDM music. So apparently, you can teach electronic music online. You can build courses on that. You can create videos about that. You can write about that. That's what one of my readers will build his own profitable business about. Just like, a different type of music. And there's probably, like, you could build courses on rapping as well, or programs on how to become a rapper and things like that. There's a lot of different things that you could teach in the online space. But EDM music is, for example, another example of a problem gap. Next example is how to become a bassist. This is one of my clients, Luke from Australia, from Become a Bassist teaches. And, rather than just teaching, guitar, which a lot of people teach, he's specifically focusing on teaching bass guitar, which not that many people teach. And, he again has a really successful online business. He has tons and tons of views on his YouTube channel. People happily buy his online courses and so on and so on. And he's, again, has a problem gap here. Next example is you could take this idea, and this is actually a made-up example, but you could always apply it to a Spanish market or a French market or something like that, like Slovenian market. I don't think anyone teaches playing bass guitar for a Slovenian market. And maybe it's not a huge market, but it's big enough that you can make a solid living off, rather than, doing something else in a job that you don't really enjoy. So this would help you take this idea of bass and create an audience gap, because maybe there is now a lot of people teaching bass online, but there's nobody teaching it in Spanish language or in French or something like that, which again gives you the opportunity to come in and help people with this specific unique angle. Okay. American English. That's the next topic. So this is a specific problem that one of my past clients, Christina Rebuffet from Speak English from Christina, she has a YouTube channel, and again, like, she sells online coaching programs that helps people master American English. Not any type of English, but typically American English. So she works with audiences like business people who want to speak better American English because they work with American companies. So that's again a problem gap, because she focuses on a specific type of English that she teaches. Okay, so French, this is actually one of Christina's friends, Geraldine Lepere from Commune Francais, teaches, another one of my past clients. Like, she teaches French online, and you might be thinking, well, she teaches French online, how is that a unique gap in the market? Well, when she started out quite a few years ago, there was actually, a gap in the angle, where nobody was really creating these like fun educational videos on learning French online, and she came in and started a YouTube channel that really took off, and then she turned that into an online business. But again, like, there was an angle gap, and this is almost the only situation out of all these ideas where there is an angle gap. But you can, if you think like, oh, there's this thing that a lot of people are doing, but I can do it differently, I can try some way of doing things differently. You can also experiment with an angle gap and it can work. Like for example, this very video, you don't really see, I haven't seen any or many videos teaching online business in this way. So I think this is unique. I think this is going to be valuable to people. I don't know until I test it and see if there's any traction and if people really like it or not. But this is also another example of like an angle gap of teaching things in a slightly different way. Note, we've covered a lot of different business ideas here, right? And we talked about these gaps in the market. Now, I do want to say that this gap in the market concept, it constantly changes. That's why something that was a great idea, great business idea maybe 5-10 years ago, it's not a great idea now, because let's say 10 years ago, this is how much content there was on the internet about certain things, like even productivity and things like that. 5 years ago, this is how much content there was. Now there's this much content, right? So here, like if you look at people who started online businesses like 2007 or, even before that, there was 13 years ago. A lot of people have very basic businesses like, how to become productive, how to save money, or how to start a freelance business, or how to find a great job or something like that. You'll see a lot of businesses that started back here. They have very general ideas, but they still work because there were no competitors, so there was a gap in the market back then. But then later on, like as the amount of blog posts kind of like started to go like this on the internet, it became harder and harder to find a gap in the market. And I do believe that today it's a lot harder to come up with a great business idea than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And that's also a thing, like a lot of people, these online entrepreneurs, they teach you how to come up with an online business idea, and they say like what they did to find it. And that doesn't really make sense because, they started back here and it was a different ball game. And that even like the things that kind of like worked here might not work anymore just because the market has developed so much. But what I have found over and over again is that while this gap in the market changes, right? Because if there's a lot more content here, that means that the gap is a lot smaller. As these gaps change, you have to become a little bit more and more creative and potentially pursue slightly smaller markets, at least initially, before you scale up to bigger markets. But it can be a little bit harder to find that gap. You just have to take that in consideration. Like if somebody started an online business like 5 years ago, if you try to use that same idea now, it's likely it's not going to have as much success, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. You should just find an idea that actually does generate a lot of traction, which is again what we'll talk about in the business validation video. This is going to help you out with that tremendously. But on the other hand, certain things in certain times, in certain situations, the demand actually can expand as well so that the gap is bigger. So for example, right now, I'm recording this video during this coronavirus pandemic thingy, and which means a lot of people are working from home, which means there's more time and space than ever for things like home workouts or, gym equipment. Like home gym equipment is selling like crazy nowadays, and the prices are super high because so many people, like there's so much demand and there's too little people offering that. And then, people who teach people like how to work out from home, they're getting an influx of clients nowadays because people really, want to learn that. So the gap, the demand kind of expanded, and there's more space for people to come in and serve their different audiences. So this will change over time. And this is, helps you explain why some business ideas that were really good 5 years ago, they're horrible now because there's a lot of competitors. But if you want to start an online business today, it is harder than it ever before in many cases. It's also easier because the technology you have available, is just so easy. Like you can set up an online course in like 10 clicks, whereas before you would have to hire a designer and a programmer and pay $2,000 for something like that. And that's also one of the reasons why, we went from here to here, because it just became so much easier for people to start blogging online and building courses and things like that. But when it comes to business ideas, like this framework, as long as there is a gap in the market, and you find it, you will start to generate some kind of traction that will help you then build this momentum of this ball that is rolling here down the hill. So that was a little bit of a detour, but I did want to mention that just so that you understand if something, was a great idea a few years ago, it might not be a great idea today. And also if there is something that you have an idea for today, know that like maybe there's a gap on the market today, and if you haven't acted on that idea yet, like if you haven't acted on it, then somebody else will, and maybe 5 years from now that gap is no longer going to be there, and you will wish that you had done that. So I really do encourage you to, just test your ideas very quickly as you kind of come up with them. Okay, now let's continue with this class and talk about how to come up with ideas. So coming up with ideas. So most people will tell you, yeah, you should start this huge brainstorm document and you should brainstorm all these different things and things like that. And look, I love the idea of that. I've just almost never seen it work. I think it's a great idea, but it's not really how it works, because that's not how, the people who started their businesses 5-10 years ago, they didn't come up with their ideas in the way that, they would start with a worksheet or something like that. So why would they teach something like that? I mean, I know they want to simplify like the knowledge for people, but in reality, like I'm more interested in what actually works than what hypothetically works. And I just haven't seen worksheets to really help people come up with different business ideas. Now, what I have seen, over and over again is this thing. This is almost with every online entrepreneur that I've talked to. They say this exact phrase in one way or the other, or they felt this exact feeling one way or the other. And that is, someone should create this. And then they decided that someone should be them. Most of the online business ideas that I've seen that really took off came from this big burning desire. Somebody should do this. Somebody should create this. Like somebody should, like there, I see this problem. I see so many people struggling with this problem, and I want to really help these people, and nobody is really doing anything to help them. That's how most online business ideas start, from this innate burning desire and, seeing like there is a need. I want to help people with this problem. And sometimes for years, you might be thinking someone should create this before realizing that nobody's going to do it and you can be the person who does it. And that's actually the story from one of my friends, James from Master Organic Chemistry. For years, he was thinking, as he was tutoring kids on organic chemistry, he was thinking like somebody should really start writing about this stuff online. And nobody ever did. So he said, oh, I'll do it. And now he gets millions and millions of website visitors because he basically wrote about every subject related to organic chemistry under the sun, and he really helps his audience through different study guides and things like that. And like I just think whenever you come up with a business idea, this is the first indicator. Like ask yourself, is there something that you feel like, somebody should create this thing, but nobody's quite doing it yet? That's typically a good indicator, and then you can go validate and test that to see if there's a gap in the market. But that's just a mental gap in the market. Like you can imagine it like, oh, somebody should create this. Like it doesn't exist yet. It's the definition of the gap in the market, and that's why this really, really works. And sometimes people will not really care about it. Sometimes it's going to become a passion project for you, which is fine. For some people, but basically that's how you start, not with just like, what am I good at? And like, what do people need help with and things like that. Those things are great. They can help inform some of the decisions with your business ideas. But like if you come up with something like, oh, like I'm really good at deep thinking and problem solving, like that's not a business idea. Perhaps that's how you'll be able to create great content, because you're really good at deep thinking and research and problem solving, and then you'll be able to take a certain topic and really use those skills to develop great content for people. But people likely they don't need help with deep thinking or research or something like that. Like that's a very broad idea, and I don't think there's like a gap in the market if you make it that broad. There might be something more specific, like doing research for your PhD, that maybe it's a good idea. But in general, like if you start with that, with just like with your skills and things like that, it's not a good idea, because you should really, really, really start with a gap in the market. And typically the very first way that you can find this is by asking yourself, like, what do I feel like somebody should really create, but nobody created yet? That's the very first thing that you can start with. Then let's look at some other examples as well, just based on everything that I've seen, from all the people that I talked to, like different things or like different ways in which they kind of like realized that they had this idea and which got them to act on it and build it out. So number one, common complaints. So if you hear people complaining about a certain thing over and over again, like, and being very vocal and very emotional about it, and they keep talking about it for hours and hours and hours on end, there's probably a business opportunity there in most cases if people actually want to solve that problem. So for example, if I was constantly complaining to people that, oh, there's no online courses on climbing, and I heard other people complain about the same thing as well, I would think, oh, that's actually a gap in the market. Or if you hear people complaining like, oh my God, like I'm trying to study for this exam to get into medical school and I just don't know where to turn and like, which resources to find. Like, it's just a frustrating experience. Like, I just don't know how to do it. That's another example of common complaints. So if you notice certain common complaints coming up over and over again, whether it's on the internet as you do your research or if it's in person, it makes sense that that's a potential for the gap in the market and that there's something there. And also, if you hear people complaining about something, then you can just go talk to them and understand what's so problematic about this, how you can help them, and so on and so on. So it's really easy to do research as well, which is something that we'll cover in the future in one of these videos. But yeah, the common complaints are just one of the avenues that you can come up with ideas. Like, you can start listening to people and think like, okay, what are people complaining about? Or every time somebody complains about something, like, oh, that's interesting. And then when you hear 10 complaints about the same subject, you're like, oh, maybe I could do something with that. Next, you have the unanswered questions. So that's the second thing. Like, if you spend a lot of time online in different online communities, or like whether that's Reddit, whether that's Facebook groups, whether that's some kind of forums related to this industry that you're in, if you notice that a lot of people are asking the same questions and they never get a good response, like there's just a lack of good responses, definitive responses, responses that would work, high quality responses. Like, if you can't find a good response to questions that keep coming up over and over again, that's an indicator that there's a gap in the market, which means if you have great responses for those questions, first of all, you can just start answering them, and you can see the reaction of people and like seeing if it actually fills the gap in the market in some way. But other than that, like, it really helps you find gaps in the market, because again, like, a lot of people have this question, which means that there's some kind of demand and nobody's answering it well, which means there's a lack of content, which means that there is a gap in the market. Next idea, same thing, but different, either topic or audience. So the next thing is, maybe you have a friend who started their own online business, and they're teaching people how to play drums. And they're doing this thing, they're doing YouTube videos, they have a few courses that they sell, and it goes well, and they're making a living off of it. And you're really good at teaching bass guitar, and think to yourself, wow, I could do the same thing, but just with bass guitar instead of drums. That means you have the same thing, but a different topic. That's the exact story of one of my clients, Luke. He had a friend who was teaching people how to play drums. He was thinking, oh, I could do the same thing. He did the research. He saw that nobody was really teaching bass online. He took the topic, brought it online, and all of a sudden, he had an online business that he could live off. So you could think, if you have somebody that, runs an online business, if you've seen an online business on a topic and you're like, wow, I could do the same thing for people, then chances are that there is some kind of a gap in the market and you can go explore that. On the other hand, maybe, like, wow, I was thinking in the beginning when I started my first online business, I thought like, wow, a lot of people are teaching productivity online. Why don't I teach productivity to poker players? Because the more productive they are, the more money they can make. And I had that thought at like 6 a.m. in my parents' apartment when I was like 22 years old. And I just started writing online and I saw that, wow, there is actually demand there. But basically you could say like, oh, wow, I'm good at this topic. And even though a lot of people are teaching it, nobody's teaching it in my country. Like, also I had, one of my readers, he built a weight loss coaching business in Slovakia. And he was able to do that relatively quickly. because again, there was way less competition there than somewhere else. So, you could see, if you have an idea, you could always think like, oh, maybe I could help, people in my country or who speak my language, or maybe I could help people with a different topic that I'm really good at that nobody else is really teaching that well right now. So that's another way in which you can come up with an actual idea. And notice how all of this, they are based on gaps in the market. They're not based on like, what am I really good at or things like that. And that's an element of it that we'll go over shortly, but they're all based on the gap in the market. Next, questions. So what I mean by questions is questions that people ask you all the time. So if people ask you a certain type of questions all the time, like for example, like, oh, Primoz, like, how do you do this thing in OneNote? Like, how do you draw this? How do you draw that? Or like in Procreate, which is the software that I use for all of my drawings and doodles for some of my articles that I have on the internet and for the covers for these YouTube videos and things like that. Let's say I was really good at that, and then a lot of my friends use that software and they would keep asking me like, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I would become like their go-to person for this software or something like that. And then I would look online and I'd be like, oh, nobody's really teaching that. No wonder why all of these friends are asking me these questions. That's another indicator of a gap in the market, because a lot of people are asking me questions. So if a lot of people are asking you questions over and over again, and they're, people that are capable of looking stuff up online and Googling, it's likely that there might be a gap in the market. So if somebody asks you a lot of questions about a certain topic over and over again, that's also another indicator that there might be a business idea there that you can pursue further. And then finally, I'm just looking at my notes here, sorry. I think I messed up my notes just a little bit. Yeah, what I wanted to say is, actually, let's call it this. This is going to be simple. Your people. So this is kind of like in line with this. It's a similar idea to this. But what I've also noticed is that sometimes, like, you just, whenever you think about, business ideas, like, it's a very good idea to find your people, to find your audience, to find somebody, who you can really relate to. So for example, if you want to teach something like productivity and you're like, okay, I really want to teach productivity, I'm really passionate about that, but I want to, I know it's a saturated market. Like, how do I take this idea and how do I make sure that, I can still build a business out of it? One way in which you can do it is just look at who are your people. And what I mean by who are your people is who can you resonate with? So for me, if I look at my life story, first of all, I come from Slovenia, so I could teach productivity to Slovenians. I went through high school and I wasn't very productive in high school, so I could decide to teach people, in high schools how to become more productive, because then they can learn faster, they can learn better, they can get better grades. Same thing for university. Then I studied computer science, so I could say like, oh, I could teach productivity to programmers. Then I played a little bit of online poker when I was in high school and university, and that's how I actually thought of the online poker players. Later on, I became an entrepreneur, so I could teach productivity to online entrepreneurs, which I actually did for a while because I thought that was a great idea, and it did relatively well in the beginning. It's not as useful now, but like back then there was a gap in the market, so I was able to teach that as well. So I was able to become a productivity coach for online entrepreneurs, and so on and so on. So you can just look at the past. You can look at like the past experiences in your life and just look at your career. Like maybe you like are a lawyer and you want to help, for example, I think that's what one of my friends, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm 90% sure that like my friend Kim Nichols, she started out by teaching meditation to lawyers. And I do think she was a lawyer in the past, or she had many lawyer friends, but she was thinking like, oh, a lot of lawyers are really burned out, really stressed out. They need help. So let me help them. So she found her people and she started serving them, and so on and so on and so on. So that's just another angle in which you can try finding a gap in the market and coming up with ideas. So all of these 5 ways you can use to start thinking about your business ideas. And when something comes to mind, then you can go and you can validate your ideas. Okay, cool. Now, what I've also noticed from just all the patterns when people actually started their own online businesses, like again, they didn't sit down and fill out a worksheet or something like that. The process was a lot more organic. And basically what I've noticed is that their ideas that they acted on basically fell into one of the two categories. So one of the categories is business ideas that they've had for a while, that they had for a long time. So they had this idea, but they never really acted on it. And then someday they decided to act on it, and then they started doing it, and there was a great response. They got a lot of traction, and they built a business out of it. I can see this pattern in many of my own business ideas, and even more specific, like product ideas that I've sold to my audience. Like I run a coaching program for top performing business owners. So I run a coaching program that's specifically for like 5 and 6 figure entrepreneurs who want to grow and scale their online businesses. And I have this coaching program where we actually speak every single week in a small group of like 4 entrepreneurs for the course of like 6 months. And I felt like nobody really does that. So that's almost like an audience gap, in this situation, or even an angle gap, because I have a different product. Like, because right now, if you're a 5 to 6 figure entrepreneur, you can basically join online courses for $1,000, $2,000, but you'll see the advice is way too generalized and you don't really get a lot of one-on-one support. Or you can join a $25,000 mastermind, and even then you might not get as much feedback and support as you would want. So you don't really have that many options, in between. So I thought like, oh, that should be a great idea. Like I really want to work with super ambitious entrepreneurs, and I just want to coach them every week, because I feel like they want that feedback on their business. They want the help and support with the challenges that they're having, and so on and so on. And, I acted on that idea, and, I did it a few years ago, and the program has been basically consistently sold out for a few years. It might have also flopped completely. Like I also tried out an idea like ultimate guide reviews. One of the things that I also taught in my online business is writing this really meaty ultimate guides that really help people master certain topics, because they're just a great way to build an audience online, get a lot of traffic, add value to your readers, and create potential customers who want to work with you because they really help you establish yourself as the expert in the industry. So I built a program on, creating ultimate guides that sold really, really well. But then I had this idea of ultimate guide reviews. Like I would review people's ultimate guides, and I tested that idea with my audience, and I got like 1 client, which was way less than I wanted to get. So that was 1 client for like $100 review one-off. And I was like, okay, there's nothing there. But basically, in many cases, people that I talk to, and also from my own experiences, if you're sitting on this idea and you've been thinking about it for a while, it might actually be a good idea. You just have to go out and test it. And then the other pattern that I've noticed, it's instant testing. So the other pattern is that somebody has an idea and they just act on it immediately. Instead of letting their doubt creep in, instead of thinking about like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work or not, to just go and test it very, very quickly. So this is this idea with this video. I had this idea for this video, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. And I'm just like, let me just instantly test it. Let me see how it goes. Maybe people like it, maybe they won't. But oftentimes, like just by acting on your ideas and testing them really, really quickly, you will come up with some of the best ideas. Some of them are going to flop completely, but oftentimes, you will find an idea that actually can take off. So again, instead of filling a worksheet or something like that, you can ask yourself, well, which are the ideas that I had for a while, and then just start acting on them. Or sometime in the future, and this is going to be at very random times. Maybe it's going to be during a client call if you already have some kind of a business set up. Maybe it's going to be at work. Maybe it's going to be during your bathroom break. Maybe it's going to be when you're taking a walk. Maybe it's going to be when you're showering. Maybe when you have a conversation with your friends. At a random moment, you're going to get this idea, write it down and test it. And it might be a good idea. I found that most of the people that came up with their, ideas, it's either one of these two things. Either I had the idea for a while, or it was like a result of instantly acting on an idea that just popped in their mind at a random time, seemingly for no apparent reason. And that's how I feel like your best ideas are going to come up as well. I don't expect you to come up with a business idea right now, because that's just not how things work organically. If you do have some ideas already that you just got based on everything that we talked about so far today, then absolutely act on those ideas, test them, see how they work, and go for it. But don't feel like you should go through this worksheet or this massive brainstorm, because again, I just haven't seen that model actually work. It's something that a lot of people teach because they try to simplify stuff, but it's not how coming up with business ideas works. You cannot force it in this way. It's more like you can learn about what makes a great business idea, and then maybe a week from now, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, you're gonna get this idea, then you're gonna act on it, and you're gonna be like, wow, this was a great idea, or oh, that was a horrible idea, let me try another idea. So that's how the whole process works. So that's the other thing I really want to emphasize here. Whenever you have an idea, rather than thinking, is this a good idea or not, your time and energy would be much better spent actually going and testing or validating it, which is what we'll talk about in the next video. So stay tuned for that. But essentially, you want to test your ideas immediately. Don't ask people, is this a good idea or not? Don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. Don't have these games in your head when you just think like, oh, is this good or not, or good or not? Because it can be, first of all, really draining and, anxiety inducing, but also it's just doesn't help you get more data, doesn't help you get more information if your business idea is actually good or not. So instead, go test your ideas, put them out into the world, like send them to people and like see what the response is. And yes, you can get a coach to critique them, and I'll also be happy to like give you my thoughts just from the angle of this framework, so you can see like, oh, if there's something that you're missing or why this would be or wouldn't be a gap in the market, I can help you with that. But don't let that stop you. Go out and test your ideas and see how they go, and that's gonna give you the best possible data, because again, you're gonna see just how your ideas feel, right? You're gonna see like, is it an uphill battle? Or do you just build momentum every time you work on it, and everything you do just seems to, create essentially more fire that you add on, more gasoline that you basically would pour on the fire. If that's how it feels, then it's a good idea. If this is how it feels, then it's a bad idea. That's the simple way that you can test ideas that we'll go into detail in the next video. I do have just a couple of more questions that I want to answer, because these are the questions that I basically get with finding business ideas all the time. So I wanted to cover them a little bit. So the first thing is like, how do you actually choose which idea to pursue? So let's say you have 5-10 different ideas. How do you choose which one of them to test, which one of them to pursue? So the way that I think about it is, I feel like every idea has 3 layers. So it has a layer of expertise, it has a layer of excitement, and it has a layer of demand. And now I'm gonna try to draw this as best as possible. So it works something like this. So the ideas that you have, some of them you will be really good at, which means that you've checked the expertise box. If you're really bad at them, so if you notice like, oh, I could, like there's nobody teaching bass guitar in Slovenia, and you're not a good guitarist, you probably shouldn't pursue that idea until you become a great guitarist. But then you shouldn't learn how to become a great guitarist just because you want to build a business around it. That's not the way it goes. Like, you shouldn't try to become a chef so that you can build a restaurant. You should probably first be really in love with cooking and cook well, and then build a restaurant. But first of all, you should have decent amount of expertise. Some people say you don't have to be an expert. I agree to some extent, but you do have to learn how to teach something well in a way that it gets results. So whatever you are going to teach, like if you can teach a beginner how to play bass guitar reasonably well, if you can teach them all the basics and things like that, that's likely enough. If you've maybe helped some of your friends, or like if you can just test it with a few people and they learn really, really well, then that's something that you can build a business about. But you do have to have that element of expertise. And then the second thing is just the excitement. So a lot of people are really good at something, but they don't really enjoy doing it. I actually think that's not a good idea to pursue those ideas in your business, because you're just going to hate them. You're not going to be in them wholeheartedly. And instead, what you really want to do is you want to pursue ideas that you both feel like you're good at it, because if you're not going to be good at it, either you're not going to be teaching something that works. And again, you wouldn't want to open a restaurant if you were a horrible chef. And yet a lot of people teach stuff online that they're just not that good at what they do, because everybody's talking, everybody can start an online business, and to some extent that's true. But I also think like you should start it about a thing that you are good at, about a thing that can get people results. So I do believe that aspect has to be there. And when that doesn't happen, there's typically a lot of imposter syndrome or feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough. Like that feeling pops up in many cases in the situation when you just don't have the expertise built. But if you have the expertise and you're really excited about a certain topic, these are the ideas that you should move on to in the next video, so you can start testing them. And ideally, the best business ideas are actually going to be here. Why is this? Let's make this brighter. Okay, the best ideas are here. So in the intersection between expertise, excitement, and demand. But of course, right now, you don't know if there really is demand. You don't know if there is a gap in the market because you haven't really tested it yet. You haven't, and even if you think there's a gap in the market, you're not sure if it's going to generate traction. So that's what we're going to cover in the next video. It's going to make your life easier. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to test all of these ideas that you have right here. And then you want to come up with this idea, which is going to be your amazing idea that you can actually build a business about. So those are ideas that you should start. If you have too many ideas, so if you have more than one idea that you are excited about, that you feel like you are good at, one, you can just start testing them and you can start validating them in the order that you want to. Or you can start with an idea that you're the most excited about, because like I found that if you want to build a business, which is going to be like 5-10 year process, if you want to really do it right, like if you're not doing this to just sell your business, like you're going to be doing this for a long time. You might as well be really excited about it. You can get better at your craft over time, but like I feel like the excitement, the passion, that element does have to be there, because like it's not easy to build an online business. It's one of the hardest things that you'll do in your life, if not the hardest thing. And you better be really excited about it if you're going to talk about these things, for hours and teach many people and work really long hours, maybe even on the side of your job. You do have to be excited about it. You do have to be good at it. When you have that, pick the idea that you're the most excited about and start with that idea. And then the final question is like, what if I have no ideas? I'm listening to you for, I don't know how much this is, like 30, 40 minutes, an hour, like just no ideas pop up. I would say, don't sweat it. Like, don't over obsess about it, because you cannot force this. Like, I've tried going over this route of coming up with ideas for worksheets, and what I realized is that you can't force coming up with a business idea. Like, I've done that, and then I've tried to build a web development company where there was really no gap in the market in Slovenia, and then I spent like 7 months pursuing that, and I did learn a couple of things. But then I had that idea I had for my very first business, like, for poker productivity. It was really just me, waking up at 6 a.m., having this idea and acting on it instantly. And like it happened with me, it's likely going to happen with you. Like maybe you're going to hear some people like, complaining about certain things because that's what you didn't pay attention to in the past. Maybe you're going to start seeing some unanswered questions pop up in a certain community you're a part of. Maybe you're going to talk to a friend and you think like, wow, I have a similar skill set I could teach. Maybe you'll start paying attention to the kind of questions that people ask you all the time. Maybe you're going to think like, oh, I really want to help this audience. But this idea is likely going to come to you at an unexpected random moment, during a conversation with your friend, during a shower, something like that. Don't try to force it. Like, do feel free to feel learning about this topic, but don't feel like you should come up with a business idea today or in a week or in 8 weeks or whatever people will want you to say. This isn't the process that you could force. Sometimes it's going to take you 7 months to find a profitable idea, like it took me in the first situation. Maybe it's going to take you a day. Maybe you already have it. I don't know. But what I can tell you is, with the ideas that you had, make sure you test them. Make sure you test them, because you might have a great idea that you're sitting on and you think it's not that great, but when you test it, and that's when you can really generate a lot of traction, and that's when you can really see if it is a good idea or not. Okay, so we covered a lot of this stuff, and I do really hope this video was helpful to you. I do invite you to, if you're on my email list, to email me to let me know how you liked it, if you have any ideas, if you want me to help you with something, if you have your business ideas that you want feedback on for a future video, send those my way. I would love to look over them and then critique them. And then, yeah, you can also leave a comment below this video. But then finally, like, if you want more help with building your own online business, I do invite you to check out my website at primožbazic.com. So I'll put a link in the description because it's kind of hard to type. But basically, you can get this ebook that you can find here. Like, if you like, this is my ultimate guide to starting a 6-figure online business, where I break down the bigger, high-level process of building an online business step by step. And I go into a lot of detail, like in everything that I do, like you've probably seen in this video. You can just click on send me the free guide. You can enter your name and email here and I'll send you the guide. If you don't want that, you can always go to my blog instead. You can look for some of the articles that I have. Here on my blog, we have things like funny drawings. We talk about all sorts of different things related to starting online business. You can look at some of my guides here in the sidebar as well. Again, you can download this guide. I also have something for copywriting that's called the Copywriting Hell Week. So if you wanted to get better at that, you could look at that as well. But essentially, come to the site, sign up to the email list, and then start talking to me. Like, email me. I want to hear from you. I want to hear about the businesses that you're building. I want to hear how I can help. I'm really running my own online business to really help people with their online businesses, because I've helped so many people in the past. And I always get really, really excited, when I help people with businesses. And it's just a very fun thing for me. So yeah, hope to see you in more of these videos. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching this video. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.